There's something curious that happens when we begin to notice ourselves noticing. Most people don't catch it, but once you do, everything shifts a little. It's as if life stops being something you're simply living and starts becoming something you're quietly watching from just behind your own eyes. There's a subtle distance in that, soft but unmistakable. Let's come into this slowly. Picture yourself in a quiet place, not silent, just quiet enough that the world around you feels softened at the edges. Maybe there's the faint hum of air moving through a vent, or distant footsteps, or the low murmur of life continuing somewhere outside this moment. You don't need to change any of it. Just notice that you are here, breathing, without effort. Your body already knows how to exist without your constant direction. There is a gentle relief in realizing that, a loosening, a small door opening somewhere inside. As we begin, don't try to understand anything yet. Don't try to get something out of this. That is the habit we are exploring. The instinct to grasp, interpret, evaluate. We'll get to that. For now, simply be here. Let the words move through you the way light moves through a window. You don't have to hold on to them. You don't have to apply them. Just let them land wherever they land. This is where the journey begins, in the soft space just before thinking starts. If this resonates, share your reflection below. Number 1, naming the not. Why smart people struggle to be happy. There's a quiet tension that lives in people who think deeply, who notice patterns, who pick up on the subtle threads between moments. And it's not because they're flawed or dramatic or unable to enjoy life. It's because the mind that can see so much has a hard time knowing when to stop looking. A thoughtful mind is like a powerful light. Point it at anything and it illuminates. Patterns appear, meaning forms, connections reveal themselves. But the same light that allows you to see clearly can become blinding when it's pointed inward all the time. This is where the struggle begins. Most people slip into joy without noticing. They laugh, they feel, they touch life in an unfiltered way. But for the intelligent, perceptive mind, there is often a second layer, a voice that whispers, "What does this mean? Am I doing this right? Is this how it's supposed to feel? Will this last?" And before the moment fully arrives, it is already being evaluated. It is like watching your life through a window instead of stepping outside into the air. The challenge isn't that the mind is too strong, it's that it never rests. It never lets the moment simply be a moment. Picture a mirror made of mirrors, reflections stretching in every direction. You look into one, and it leads to another, and another, and another. Each thought branches into 5 more. Each insight leads to a new layer beneath it. You become not only the person living the moment, but the person studying it, narrating it, replaying it, preparing for its next variation. And somewhere along the way, the experience itself begins to thin. Joy becomes something examined instead of something felt. Peace becomes something pursued instead of something allowed. Presence becomes a task rather than a state. Many thoughtful people don't realize that this is happening. They simply feel a subtle sense of distance, like they are near their life but never fully inside it, as if every moment is slightly behind glass. The truth is, the mind is a brilliant companion, but a poor owner. It was never meant to hold every moment. It was meant to touch life, not contain it. If this resonates, share your reflection below, even just a sentence. Sometimes naming the knot is the first step to loosening it. Number 2, the commentary problem. There's a moment, and you've likely felt it, when something good happens, something simple. Maybe sunlight lands just right on the floor. Maybe someone says your name with warmth. Maybe a sudden laugh escapes before you have time to think about it. For an instant, you are inside the moment, without distance, without commentary. And then, almost immediately, the mind arrives. It steps in as narrator, archivist, analyst. What is this feeling? Why is it happening now? Will it fade? Am I appreciating it enough? The moment that was once alive becomes something to be managed, explained, captured, or held on to. And in the effort to hold it, it slips through your fingers. This is the commentary problem. The mind isn't trying to ruin anything. It's trying to help. It has learned that awareness equals safety. That understanding equals control. So it speaks and speaks and speaks, just to make sure nothing is missed. But the cost of constant narration is that you stop hearing the moment itself. It's like having a microphone left on in an empty theater. The sound of your thoughts begins to echo, filling the space where life should unfold quietly on its own. And the strange thing is, the commentary often feels necessary. If you stop analyzing, wouldn't you lose something? Wouldn't you become careless, unprepared, unaware? These are the questions the mind whispers to keep itself employed. But consider this: the most profound moments of your life, the ones you remember without effort, the ones that shaped you, were moments you were fully inside. They weren't narrated, they were lived. There is a softness in remembering that you don't need to explain joy for it to matter. You don't need to capture peace for it to be real. You don't need to think your way into presence. Sometimes the truest contact with life happens when the mind steps aside. Not gone, not silenced, but resting. So the next time you notice something beautiful, try this. Let it be beautiful before you understand it. Let it reach you before you describe it. If this resonates, share your reflection below. Even a single line is enough. Number 3, time as a tight fist. There's something subtle that happens when we start living more in our thoughts than in our senses. Time begins to feel like something we're chasing or defending, instead of something we're inside of. For many thoughtful people, time is never simply now. It becomes a negotiation, something to manage, control, save, or make use of. The present is treated like a narrow doorway between the weight of the past and the pressure of the future. Think about how often your mind drifts forward, planning, anticipating, trying to prevent mistakes before they happen, or how often it moves backward, revisiting conversations, replaying moments, sorting, evaluating, adjusting the story. The past becomes a museum you keep rearranging. The future becomes a draft you are constantly revising. And the present becomes the hallway you hurry through on your way to somewhere else. Smart people often hold time in a tight fist. They are accustomed to solving things, shaping outcomes, influencing what happens next. The mind learns to treat life like a sequence of problems to optimize. And that same instinct, which is genuinely useful in many areas, creeps into moments that were never meant to be handled like puzzles. Rest, joy, connection, quiet. These things cannot be improved by thinking about them harder. Imagine sitting with someone you love. Their presence is warm. The moment is simple. Nothing needs to happen. But instead of relaxing into it, your mind starts to scan the edges. Am I being present enough? Does this feel meaningful? Should I say something thoughtful? Is this how this moment is supposed to feel? And suddenly the moment becomes something to perform, something to get right, something to achieve. Time narrows the present things. Another image, a wristwatch ticking underwater. The sound is still there, but muffled, blurred, distant. That's what the present feels like when the mind is constantly negotiating with time. You're here, technically, but there is a layer of fog between you and the moment. And yet, time itself has never changed. The present has always been the only place life actually happens. Thought can travel backward or forward, but the body can only exist now. The breath can only happen now. The heartbeat can only happen now. And life, in its simplest and most immediate form, is felt through the body long before it is interpreted by the mind. If you want to soften the grip of time, try beginning with something small and concrete, the texture of your breath. Not deep breathing, not controlled breathing, just the simple sensation of air entering and leaving. Notice the temperature, the rhythm, the way it happens without your involvement. You are not directing it. You are simply witnessing something real, something happening, something present. Or notice the weight of your hands where they rest, the fabric against your skin, the movement of light in the room. These are not tasks, they are invitations. A widening of the frame, a reminder that presence is not something you manufacture, it's something you remember. Because the truth is, you've already been present many times in your life. You were present when you laughed without thinking, when music touched you in a way you couldn't explain, when someone's voice softened your whole body, when you saw the sky and felt for just a moment that everything was okay without needing to know why. Those moments weren't distant, they weren't narrated, they weren't managed, they were simply lived. Time opened, life touched you, and you let it. If this resonates, share your reflection below, even a few words. It helps the mind soften when something inside you is spoken aloud. Number 4, control versus contact. There is a quiet instinct in many of us to hold life gently but tightly, as if by keeping our hands on every detail, we can guarantee what happens next. It comes from something understandable. A desire to feel safe, to keep things stable, to avoid unnecessary pain. And intelligence often strengthens this instinct. Because a sharp mind is good at anticipating. It can spot patterns early. It can see how things might unfold before they do. It can prepare. But preparation, when carried too far, becomes control. And control, when carried too far, begins to dull contact. Think of trying to hold a wave in your hands. The closer you pull your fingers together, the less water you can keep. The more you try to secure the moment, the more it slips away. Joy, connection, contentment. These things are not objects to be gripped. They are more like weather. You experience them by being in them, not by catching them and storing them on a shelf. Control says, if I manage everything, I'll stay safe. Contact says, if I show up fully, I'll be real. The trouble is, control can feel so natural that you don't notice you're doing it. You may catch yourself rehearsing conversations before they happen, or rephrasing something you said hours later, or scanning someone's face for answers they haven't spoken, or adjusting your presence to match what you think is expected. It's subtle, it's quiet, it's practiced, and it is exhausting. Contact, on the other hand, is simple, but vulnerable. It asks you to show up as you are, without arranging yourself first. It asks you to listen without preparing your reply, to laugh without wondering how you look, to rest without justifying why you're resting, to feel something without immediately explaining it. Contact is stepping into the moment before you know how it ends. This is why it's hard. Intelligence loves certainty. It loves clarity, structure, definition. But life, real, felt, lived life, rarely arrives packaged and labeled. It arrives raw, shifting, unrepeatable. If you're always waiting to understand the moment before participating in it, the moment will always pass first. There is a gentle practice here. Try relaxing the impulse to manage. Just a little. When someone speaks, listen without reaching for your next thought. When something warm moves through you, let it complete its shape before you analyze it. When silence appears, don't rush to fill it. Let the wave move through you without grabbing for it. You may be surprised by what happens. Color returns, texture returns, presence returns. You are no longer standing beside your life. You are inside it. If this resonates, share your reflection below. Even one sentence is enough. Naming what you feel is a small act of contact. Number 5, the ego's stagecraft. There's a part of us, a familiar, steady part, that works like a stage manager behind the scenes of our lives. It tries to decide how we should appear, what we should say, what role we should play, how we should be perceived. It means well. It wants us to be accepted, understood, respected. It believes that if it can just get the performance right, everything will fall into place. This is the ego, but not in the dramatic, self-centered sense people often talk about. This version is quieter, it's thoughtful, it's careful, it's rehearsing lines long before we speak them, it's adjusting posture and tone without us even noticing, it's scanning the room to determine what version of ourselves belongs here. The ego's job, as it sees it, is to control the spotlight, to ensure the story is coherent, tidy, pleasing. But life is not a script. Life is improvisation, and the more we try to control every moment, the less alive it feels. Imagine a small theater. The kind with warm lights, wooden floors, a slight echo when someone breathes. There's a single spotlight on the stage. The ego stands just off to the side, headset on, clipboard in hand, whispering directions. Stand here. Speak now. Don't let that emotion show. Smile a bit more. That laugh was too loud. That pause was too long. It's trying to keep the play smooth. But plays that are too smooth become flat, predictable, lifeless. Great moments, the ones that move us, are slightly messy. They surprise us. They reveal something we didn't plan to show. They feel real precisely because they escape our control. The ego fears this. It thinks, if I don't guide every step, something will go wrong. But here's the gentle truth. The most memorable, authentic moments of your life happened when you forgot to manage yourself, when a genuine laugh broke through, when your eyes softened without permission, when a word caught in your throat, when something inside opened before you knew how to explain it. Those were the moments when you were not performing, yet you were simply there. The ego is not the enemy. You don't need to silence it or fight it. In fact, trying to destroy it only strengthens it. Instead, you can acknowledge it. The way you would acknowledge someone trying their best, even if they're doing too much. You might say inwardly, thank you. I know you're trying to help, but we're okay right now. Let's just be here. No force, no rejection. Just a soft widening of space. The stage lights dim a little. The clipboard is set down, and you begin to feel yourself returning, not as a character, not as a role, but as the quiet, breathing presence that existed before the performance began. Number 6, fear's subtle geometry. Fear is a quiet architect. It doesn't usually arrive with panic or dramatic intensity. More often, it shapes how we move through the world in subtle ways, drawing invisible boundaries around our experience. We learn to live within these boundaries without ever noticing we've agreed to them. For thoughtful people, this architecture tends to be intricate because the mind is skilled at disguising fear as logic, caution, or reason. Something feels good, warm, or open. Maybe joy, affection, or a moment of ease, and almost immediately there's a faint pullback, a whisper of caution that says, don't get too close, don't lean too far in. This might not last. It doesn't feel like fear, it feels like being responsible. Yet beneath the surface, it is simply an attempt to avoid vulnerability. Fear isn't interested in what's true, it's interested in what feels safe. Its job is to prevent you from experiencing anything unpredictable, even if that unpredictability might be beautiful. It turns open fields into narrow hallways, replacing freedom with familiarity. Imagine standing on a bridge overlooking a calm lake. The water is right there, reflective, alive, inviting. But instead of stepping toward it, you grip the railing, analyze the depth, measure the ripples, consider what might happen if you let yourself get too close. You watch instead of touch. You observe instead of enter. The moment stays safe, but it never becomes real. This pattern is especially common in perceptive people because the mind is good at forecasting outcomes. It knows that everything changes, and so it tries to preempt loss by limiting how deeply we allow ourselves to feel. The logic becomes, if I don't step fully into joy, I won't be hurt when it fades. But in protecting ourselves from potential loss, we end up protecting ourselves from the very experiences that give life color, warmth, and meaning. Ironically, we are not avoiding pain, we are avoiding presence. The shift begins in very small ways. The next time something feels good, a laugh, a soft moment, a sense of calm, don't tighten around it. Don't analyze it. Don't try to hold it or make it last. Just allow it to be here for one breath longer than you normally would. That's all. Fear may whisper caution, and that's fine. Acknowledge it. But stay. One breath. The field begins to widen from there. If this resonates, share your reflection below, even a sentence. Speaking what you feel is one small act of stepping back into the moment. Number 7, mirrors, waves, and windows. There are certain images that help us understand the way our inner world works, not by explaining it, but by pointing to it. Mirrors, waves, and windows. They show us something simple and profound about how we meet our own experience. They don't tell us what to do. They simply reflect what is already happening. If you sit with these images slowly, they reveal something about presence, about perception, about how we move through life when we're not trying to control it. So let's move through them gently, one at a time, and see how they unfold. Think about mirrors first. A mirror is a beautiful, familiar object. It shows you what is there, but it also has a strange ability to multiply itself. One mirror alone is harmless. It simply reflects what stands before it. But two mirrors placed facing each other don't just reflect one image. They reflect reflections of reflections. A hallway of endless versions of you appears, each one slightly smaller than the last, each one fading into distance. This is what happens when the mind reflects on itself. Awareness noticing awareness. The moment you begin to observe your thoughts, you realize there is also a part of you observing the observer. Then, another part noticing that. And soon, the experience of simply being becomes layered with commentary, perspective, analysis, and self-awareness. The mirror is not the problem. Reflection is not the problem. But when the reflections multiply endlessly, when we analyze our experience instead of inhabiting it, we begin to feel distant from the world. Life becomes something we watch rather than touch. This is why joy can feel fleeting, not because it is rare, but because we step into it only for a second before returning to the corridor of reflections. The key is not to break the mirrors or reject them. It is to recognize when reflection has replaced experience and gently return to the original image, the one closest to the glass, the simplest version of yourself, the one who is here, not thinking about being here. Now think of waves. If you stand at the edge of the ocean, you'll see waves rising and falling, arriving and leaving, endlessly. Some are gentle, some are powerful. Some rush toward the shore and fade before they arrive, but all of them are temporary. None can be held. If you reach into the water to capture the shape of a wave, it slips through your hands every time. The moment you try to make a wave stay, it collapses. This is how emotions move. Joy rises, settles, returns. Sadness comes, swells, fades. Comfort, longing, clarity, confusion. Each one arrives like a tide. But when we fear the loss of joy or fear the arrival of pain, we begin trying to control the movement of the water. We harden against it. We brace, we grip, and the gripping, not the wave, is what exhausts us. The ocean does not ask you to manage its rhythm. It only asks you to feel the tide as it washes against your feet, to experience the moment of contact instead of trying to predict its ending. When joy arrives, the most loving thing you can do is allow it to touch you without attempting to hold it. When sadness arrives, the kindest thing you can offer is space for it to move, not indulging, not resisting, just letting the wave be a wave. When you stop gripping your emotional world, the tides move naturally, and experience regains its texture. The ocean never needed you to control it. It only needed you to stop trying to build walls around the water. And then there are windows. During the day, when sunlight is bright outside, a window is clear. You look through it and see the world, trees, sky, people, the living movement of life happening beyond the glass. But at night, when the room is dark and you stand close to the glass, the window turns into a mirror. You see your own reflection instead of the world beyond it. You are looking at the same glass, but depending on light, perspective, and closeness, you either see outward or see yourself. This is how perception works. When our attention is open and spacious, we look through experience and see life directly. But when attention tightens, when fear rises, when self-monitoring increases, we begin to see only ourselves again, our reflection, our narratives, our interpretations, our assumptions. The shift between window and mirror is subtle. It can happen so quickly that you don't even notice. One moment you are simply living, the next you are watching yourself live. But here is the gentle part. You do not need to fix this. You do not need to break the mirror. You only need to step back from the glass just enough to see through it again. When the mind becomes the focus of your attention, try widening the frame. Notice a sound in the room. Notice your breath moving lightly. Notice the sensation of your clothes against your body. These are not techniques to control your experience. They are simply ways of remembering that the world exists outside the reflection. Presence is not a dramatic achievement. It is a return, a soft shift in perspective. From looking at yourself to looking through yourself into life. You are not leaving yourself behind. You are including yourself in the world again. Mirrors remind us not to live entirely in reflection. Waves remind us not to grip the movement of our emotional life. Windows remind us that perspective is fluid, and we can gently shift from self-awareness back into experience. You don't have to master any of this. You only have to notice. Awareness itself does the rest. If this resonates, share your reflection below, even a sentence or a few words. Sometimes simply naming what touched you helps it settle deeper into your life. Number 8, practicing softness. Softness isn't weakness. It's the quiet willingness to let life move through you without tightening around it. Presence doesn't require dramatic effort. It happens in small returning moments, the kind that last only a breath or two, but change the texture of the day when noticed. You can begin with something simple. When you wake up, before the mind rushes forward, pause. Feel the weight of your body resting where it is. Notice the temperature of the air, the quiet rhythm of breathing, no analysis, no goal, just contact. Another moment. When someone speaks to you, let yourself hear them without preparing your reply. You may be surprised how much space that creates. There's also the practice of allowing emotion to be physical before it becomes a story. Instead of asking what a feeling means, notice where it lives in your body, the chest, the throat, the stomach, and let it rise and settle in its own time. These are micro-rituals of return. They do not demand discipline, only gentleness. You're not learning how to be present, you're remembering that you already are. If this resonates, share your reflection below. Number 9, the closing light. We arrive back at the quiet room where we began. The breath is still moving, the world is still unfolding. Nothing needed to be solved, nothing needed to be perfected. You were here the whole time. The mind can rest now, not because everything is certain, but because certainty was never the point. Life is something touched, not managed. Something entered, not observed from afar. So let this moment land gently. Let it be enough. If this spoke to you, like, subscribe, and share this reflection. And if something stirred inside you, share your reflection below.